This is Polish Peter, and welcome to episode 75 of Immigrant Masters Unite. Hey guys, it's Polish Peter, and welcome to another amazing episode of Immigrant Masters Unite. On this particular podcast, I had a special guest. His name is Shervin, and he is originally from Iran, and this guy is amazing. He has been through different things in life that has brought him on this particular path here in the United States. And what ended up happening for him is he came here when 17 years old, and he started college, got a degree in electrical engineering. And a lot of it has to do because what was expected of him, right? But then he ended up, certain things happened in his life that put him on a different path, different direction. And he went on to self-discovery for himself, who he really is. How do you find happiness? And what has come out of that is short amazing and astonishing of what he's able to do. So on this particular podcast, we talked about happiness. What does it mean to be happy? How do you actually find happiness? Can you find happiness? We talked about what's it like to living in the moment, and how do you actually live in the moment? If you are the kind of a person who constantly goes back to the past or worries about the future, listen to this particular podcast because we talked about how to live in the moment and what it actually means. We talked about forgiveness. We talked about happiness. We talked about sadness. We talked about meditation. He actually shared a really cool way of looking at meditation that is going to help you actually sit down and meditate, right? And that is a really amazing thing. And the last thing I want to share about this particular podcast is, out of this podcast, I got an idea. I want to share something with you at the end of this podcast. So stay with me. And I have a really cool proposition for you that is not going to cost you anything, really, but I want to give back to the community that kind of came out of this particular podcast episode. So stay with me till the end. And in the meantime, listen to this particular episode because it was amazing. So without further ado, here is Shervin from Iran. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another amazing episode of Immigrant Masters Unite, where immigrants unite and transform lives. That's right. This podcast is all about helping you transform your life, your business, and the world around you. And I'm your host, Polish Peter. That's right. And on this particular podcast, here's the cool thing that I get to do every single time I have this particular podcast is I get to interview successful immigrant entrepreneurs and business owners, and I get to dissect, I get to talk to them, I get to strategize and get into the minds of those successful immigrant masters that came here to the United States, sometimes literally starting from nothing. Sometimes they came here as teenagers, right? I came here when I was 14, and my particular guest today came here as a 17-year-old. And from that, they created some kind of a life for themselves, an impactful life most of the time that actually helps to transform not only their own life, but the world around them. And today's podcast, I have such a guest. His name is Shervin Hojat. I think I got your last name right. Did I get that right?
Yes.
All right, very cool. Awesome. So Shervin was born in Iran, and at the age of 17, he came to the United States and he started attending classes in the University of Minnesota. And because of what it was kind of expected of him, he got a PhD of electrical engineering, computer science. But as you can imagine, sometimes life doesn't work out that way. And in 2009, because of what has happened in his life took a different direction. He actually wrote the book, and the book it's called Tend to Your Garden Within. And that book arose from many years of actually searching for his own spirituality and his life's purpose. So the catalyst, I think, for the book was, he might talk a little bit more about it, his father's fatal accident in 2006 back in Iran. And since then, Shervin went on to this, discovery process, right? Finding his personal transformation and finding what it is life about, right? How do we actually find happiness and all those kinds of things? And I'm so glad that I got to connect with Shervin and get to know him a little bit better, because I want to have a conversation with him about those particular topics, because I think it's really important for a lot of people, especially immigrants who are coming into this country. So, Shervin, thank you so much for being on this podcast, and give us like a 5-minute or so story of how you actually got here and the whole discovery process here.
Oh, thank you very much, Peter. I'm very happy to be here. As you mentioned, I was born in Iran, and my father was a doctor, and my mom was a midwife nurse. My wife, my mother, she was an artist, but at the age of 19, she decided it's not enough money, and so she actually decided to become a nurse and actually have a more stable life. But she always wanted to be an artist, and she always wanted to do the art. And at the age of 17, I came to the United States because, what was happening around that time during the revolution and so forth. And I got my PhD in electrical engineering, and I started working and having a family. And in the process, I realized there are so many people at work. They are very successful. They are making lots of money. They got all kind of ranks, but they're not happy. They always, when I see them at the work, having coffee with them, they always, there's something is there, and always, in the future, when I retire, I'm going to do this. When this happens. And it made me wonder. I said, what is this? I know at the end, people, they retire, and 1 year or two later, they have a heart attack and die, and they never get what they really wanted to reach. So that's really started. I said, what is it about? And at that time also, I was feeling, wow, everybody is trying to have a connection. There is something in there that at least to show it looks like they are happy with something, and I don't have it. Mm-hmm. So I started looking. I said, okay, what is it this? I started searching. I started taking many classes, finding teachers that actually guided me to kind of what it is. And at the end, the outcome was I needed to trust myself. I need to listen to the voice inside me rather than looking at all the distraction outside. And that was the thing, just the building process to experience whatever it is, the connection we have, whatever you want to call it, divine or God, or whatever it is that you want to call it, with that thing that gives us a confidence and connection. And it's not something that you think about it or read about it. You have to experience it. For me, all the things, modality that I experience and look into, I look the one that actually gives me something, raises my vibration, helps me, rather than just to be a theory. Oh, nice to experience that. That's one, but whatever it is, kind of is uplifting. That was, I was looking. And so that was my journey. At 2009, I wrote that book, and actually my father's death, that was a catalyst. And it goes back to the belief. My father always, I learned lesson from my parents. My father always believed that he's gonna die alone. He had some belief like that. And I always wonder, why is that? And then what happened, my father was in a hospital, and I was going to go see him, and there was a snowstorm back east, and I couldn't travel to Iran until the next day. By the time me and my sister got there, my father had passed away. And actually he actually manifested what he was telling is going to happen. And that kind of brought my attention. Okay, what am I saying to myself? What is it that I am saying? Oh, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. And I go and create it. So that was a big lesson I received from my father as a gift, that watch out what you're, Shervin, what are you saying and thinking about it?
Right. First and foremost, obviously, my deep condolences for losing your dad. And obviously that fact that you couldn't make it there in time, that probably had a big impact on you. And I think that's what kind of started your journey on this self-discovery, A couple of things that I've heard you that I think we need to kind of elaborate a little bit more and kind of explain to the audience is, one is, you came here to the United States. I don't know did you come here by yourself, or was it with a family when you were 17?
I came by myself first.
Okay. Yeah. So you're kind of thrown into this brand new environment, right? And what, we kind of talked about before a little bit about this going into the college and computer science and electrical engineering. It's something that you're supposed to do, right? It wasn't something that you were really like passionate to give you that purpose in life, right? So I kind of floating around, weren't you, at the beginning there?
Well, I knew it was kind of, at that time, either you go become engineer or you become doctor.
Right, but that's the belief system, right?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, and I went along with that, but I really later realized that really for me is teaching and self-discovery and finding who I am and how to help people. That was my biggest passion. And
during that time when you were going through school,
yes,
you felt that way, like this is what you're supposed to do.
I felt the unease that I need something more to do. But as I went through the process, as I looked for what else is out there, and I felt more joy and kind of realized, oh, this makes me happier. Gives me more joy. So what happened after work? I started taking classes, reading books, and kind of saying, okay, this is interesting. That's how it builds up, and I build the confidence. Okay, this really makes me happy now. This is a path. Yeah. So it was a gradual process, but I had to explore it. It wasn't something that something came to me and says, this is what I need to do, because, we have a mindset already said, this is a path I've chosen. I've invested so much into engineering and so forth. I mean, it's kind of difficult to let it go. So you just have to kind of gradually realize what is it that you really makes it the biggest joy. It's not something that is bad, but it's just, what is the biggest joy that you can get?
And you were getting pulled towards that,
Yes.
Right. Very cool. All right. So the next thing I want to kind of discuss is, there was the big impactful event that happened for you in life. And I think what happens a lot for people in life, when there is that impactful event that happens and you kind of like literally in the moment, you start looking at life differently, right? Yeah. For you, the whole thing with your dad and how he kind of kept saying that, and that came to being the truth, right? And you realize like, wow, I mean, can we actually start thinking about something and then have that come to like manifested in such a way? And that kind of like triggered your different ways of looking at life and start experiencing it and start going after this, learning more, right? So that's when the self-discovery happens. So let's talk about this discovery process, because you mentioned a couple of words in there, your modalities. So you can explain that a little bit more, because I think some people are not very clear what that means. And then, go ahead.
Yeah. So my modalities, I mean, if you look at the self-discovery area, there are many things that people do. Some people do energy work. I mean, like, for example, something like Reiki is an energy work that you can apply to yourself. But that's a way of self-discovery. For me, that was a mode for self-discovery. Actually, I could feel my own energy. I could feel I can impact someone. I can touch a plant or an animal and actually send energy, and I feel it. So that was one modality, for example, I was dealing. Or sometimes you look at your own language, what you say, how you say something. That has impact. It's proven that it will impact you physically, emotionally, and so forth. So those are kind of, and each one we learn about it, and sometimes gets repeated over and over, because whatever we are ready to accept, we accept at that moment, and later on gets repeated, and then so, oh yes, I have read about this, I have studied this, and then it comes back again, and it's like a layers over layers. So by modalities, I mean I have looked at numerology, I've looked at many different things that each of them kind of points. The reason I look at the modalities is because, as you know, whatever we do most of the time, 90% is subconscious. So in order to know ourselves and why we do certain things, we need to kind of get pointers to where our subconscious pointing us to. And so I've kind of learned those modalities to figure out, okay, what are the patterns? What are the patterns that point me that, okay, if I'm getting angry about something, what's the root of that? What's the source of that? Is it certain belief that I'm resisting? And that kind of inquiry and search for that actually helps to kind of peel the onion. I would call it peel the onion,
Right.
because our subconscious is so complicated, and
Right.
we just peel the onion until we get some. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit more about that, because here's the thing. I think some people out there, because I talk about this stuff all the time on my show here,
Yes.
mindset, right? Your subconscious. Your subconscious literally runs about 95% of your life, whether you realize it or not.
Yes.
So how is it that we are the certain way, or we have this environment that we're in, or all the things that are happening to us? Like some people say, well, why does this always keep happening to me, right? And I think that's something that they can grasp as being real, right? However, if you look at from the subconscious and the thoughts and all that kind of stuff, that they may look at like it's not real, right? So why does this really matter? Why do we need to look at all this stuff?
Okay, so you're asking me why the reason because if you, it's like a program. Subconscious is like a program that, just imagine we've been all programmed at birth, or just age 3 or 4, you've been programmed to be a certain way. I mean, we can follow that path, and for most parts, we won't be happy. We don't have our own true sense of who we are, our happiness. We don't have any of that, but we can live and we can whatever. But I think for most people, they feel the emptiness. They feel something missing. It's just like you put the boat on the ocean or on the lake, and it goes on a direction. Now we are the captain of the ship. We kind of need to decide what is the story we want to have, what the story we want to tell, and how we're going to impact the world. Because we are on a certain path, and that's where the subconscious comes. And also, the most important thing is really peace of mind. When we peel the onion and we become free. The whole goal of this thing is we become free and have peace of mind, no matter kind of what's going on around us. Because I believe most of the time most of our things we do is based on fear. We fear of, okay, how people are going to judge us. We fear of we're going to be rejected. We fear, okay, if we don't look good. And we make many decisions in our life from when we wake up based on that fear, and we're not aware of it. When I think about it, so my goodness, we are in terror all the time, because we are trying to not experience something. We try not to experience the emptiness that is required sometimes. We try not to be weak and cry or be sad. And all of this stops us from having the quality of life. Just that moment that says, oh my God, I'm so happy to be alive. With no reason. Just being alive at this experience in that moment. That's the thing that really, I think we need to, that's why I look at it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So I got a question for you. Then
Sure.
Let's look at the, one of the things that what I heard you say is the fear. It's something that we're trying to avoid, right? We're always kind of pushing it away. I don't want this. I don't want this. I want to avoid this and all that kind of stuff. And yet it keeps coming back, right? It never leaves. It's like, or if they're being sad, right? And you kind of touched on it at the beginning of this conversation about you working in the workplace, and you're looking around and people are sad, they're not happy, and they're trying to find that happiness. So my question to you is, can you find happiness?
Well, the happiness is our state of mind, and that and letting go of our expectations that we have. Things has to be a certain way. Because as soon as we put our life and our expectation into a frame, then we are unhappy, because the life is going to take its own path, and really we don't have much control. I mean, we have a wish, we have a desire, but if we are looking at a certain way, then we are not going to be happy. Just for example, if I want to go outside and it's raining, there's nothing I can do about the rain, but I can change my mindset. I said, what is beautiful about the rain? Can I enjoy the rain even though it's pouring here? Can I find something in it that gives me joy? Maybe the smell, maybe the freshness. And so that's a happiness, because it's not something I can find out there, but I need to change my point of view. And when I change my point of view, then I can be happy. I don't need to have many things to be happy. There are many people all over the world, they are happy compared to what people in the US, they don't have nothing, but they're happy. Right. The reason is because their mindset. They look at things differently. Their expectation of what it is, it's great. Like, for example, if my leg hurts, yes, I can be unhappy, but I can be happy that my hand working, my hand is not hurting, and I can enjoy it. I can do something with it. So it's a depending on the mindset and accepting what the life is, and then try to fight it.
Okay, so a few things that I'm hearing out of this is happiness is not something that you can actually find, that you can actually look for. Like it's something that's out there that you go and get it. Happiness is something that's within you, right? So that's the first thing I'm hearing. The second thing I'm hearing is the happiness comes from focus, like reframing or looking what you are focusing on. A lot of times when people are unhappy, when they're sad, whatever, they focus on the external, something that they can't control, right? You can't control if the rain is coming down. You can't control if what's going out there in the world, especially like in media, right? You can't control that stuff. When you're constantly looking at that kind of stuff and you don't have that, you don't feel the control, right? You can't do anything about it. That brings that negative energy into your life. However, if you go and reframe it and you look at like, what can I control? Well, you can control your own thoughts, right?
Yes.
But here's the thing. How can I actually control my own thought? Because I think for some people, it looks like it just happens. Not something that can actually control like what's going on in here.
Yeah, it's not a control. It's kind of intentional, maybe like a practices. I would call it like even gratitude, just having the appreciation. Like for me, like every morning when I wake up, I do some meditation for in a couple of minutes, but I just focus on gratitude. And sometimes we're in a mood that whatever is going around us, we might not find something to be grateful. So I sit down and I say, well, I'm grateful for the chair I'm sitting on. I'm grateful for the bed I slept. Whatever it is. And it's not a theory because I can feel it changes me. It changes my energy, changes. Just a couple of simple things, whatever it is. And so that's it, kind of become the training. I mean, yes, our mind, the thoughts comes and goes, but if you do it a couple of times a day, just reset, just maybe put it on a calendar or something, just say, what are you grateful about for the next 10 seconds? I think that will kind of brings the happiness and joy. I'm in nature and I look at the birds and, flowers. The birds are always happy. I mean, they're in a moment. They don't care what's happening in the stock market. They don't care who said to them yesterday. I mean, they're the fullest. They're the fullest. They're out there. And I always say, okay, why can't we be like that? Why always have to look in the back or worry about the future? Why not be in the moment and just be grateful for whatever the universe is providing us?
So few things that I heard you just talk about. One is a little exercise that you can actually do when you're feeling down or when you're feeling like going down that rabbit hole, right? Because a lot of times it starts from that one little thought, right? And then the next thought and the next thought, and you're starting feeling bad. One little exercise that you can do right there in that moment is just ask yourself the question, what am I grateful for? And I actually do this with my students all the time. I actually did it with a student today in the morning on a coaching session, right? Yeah. And it completely changed his energy. He was totally like fine afterwards, right? So it is amazing how that one little exercise can do. The other thing that I've heard you say is, you refer to birds as an example, but I think what's important to get out of that one is that living in a moment. Yes. Because when you live in the moment, you're actually experiencing, right? As opposed to looking in the past or looking in the future. And for some people, past is bad, or some people looking in the future might be bad, right? But living in the moment is a really good way of experiencing life.
Yes. And that's actually living in the moment is when we are alive. When we look back, we are just living a memory. We are not really experiencing anything new. And there's so much we can experience. My experience is being in the moment is the most joyful thing because I have no expectation. I just think, surprise me, see what is coming to me. it's like it's free. You're free actually. When you're in the moment, you're free because you don't have any expectation. You're just saying, okay, surprise me, universe. Tell me what's coming up, and I would react to it. I would deal with it when it comes to me, rather than try to anticipate it.
Right, exactly. And so let me ask you this. How does this apply to, let's say, someone who has a business or someone who's an entrepreneur or an immigrant who comes to this country? How would they use that kind of thinking or this idea in their own life?
Well, the thing is, it's while living in the moment, when we talk about that, is we try to control and micromanage the outcome. So for example, if I'm doing something, I do my best on what I know to do something. For example, I go to my work and I work the hardest and the smartest way. I do what I need to do. Now, living in the moment, if I keep on worrying about how other people are going to react to me, what is the outcome is going to be, and I'm sabotaging myself. I'm doing my best. Now, if somebody appreciates it, appreciates it. If somebody doesn't appreciate it at that moment, that's fine. But I am happy with myself. I've done the best I can do. I haven't wasted my energy worrying about what other people may or may not think or do. So that's really, it's more of the trusting that you're supported. The living in the moment means trusting that you're supported. You put your effort in and you trust the best thing is going to happen for you.
Right. So what I've heard out of that conversation is how that would apply in somebody's life. So let's say for a business, having a conversation with a client, right? What you want to have a new client, right? When you're living in a moment, you don't set the expectations when, what he's going to say, what she's going to say, how they're going to react. And so you start putting all this kind of nonsense in front of actually what comes out of somebody's mouth. Same thing that comes when in relationships, any kind of relationship, dating, right?
Yes.
And when they see this girl they want to approach, what happens? When they get freaked out, when they get stopped, it's not because they were living in that moment. It's because they started projecting what might happen or what might not happen, right? So this applies into so many different, even like you're launching something new in a company, right? As a team, you have a plan that you set for yourself, like you have goals, you have a plan, but what's important to understand is I want you to have that plan out. Living in that moment and executing in a moment will allow you to actually reach that goal as opposed to kind of like worrying about what's going to happen, what's not going to happen, right?
Exactly. Yes. I know about the people that really actually I really like to talk with, and they really impress me. They're the people that are in the moment, because when they talk with me, or they are listening. They are not waiting for the next thing what they're gonna say, and you can feel it. You cannot fake it when somebody is present with you, and that applies to everywhere, even at work. What business you're doing, if somebody comes and says, "Oh my God, what's gonna happen tomorrow?" If you're in the moment, it's just okay. Let's do what we can do today, and we deal with it. And actually, that brings all the tension and energy down, because it says, okay, we're gonna take care of it. It's not something that we're gonna do our best, and all we can do is do our best. There's nothing more. That's nothing more that we can do. So when at every moment we're doing our best, without kind of trying to go in the back. I know sometimes our past experiences is gonna kick in, but the best we can do, I think we cannot do any more better than that, because we are present, and when we are present, actually, my experience is we are much more effective. Right. We are much more effective, and we can make decisions much, much better and clearer. So that has been my experience.
I agree with you 100%. So here's my next question, because there are some people out there who quote unquote live in the past, right? Mm-hmm. Or they live in the future. They're always like looking in what might happen in the future. And it's like they've been like doing this for many, many, many years. So now you're telling them, well, you need to live in the moment. But it's not an easy thing for that person to do, right? Because they're constantly either worrying about the past or worrying about the future. So what would you say to them? How do you actually start living, being present and being in the moment?
Well, we need to that's a tough one. We need to, we need to let go of our stories, because when we live in the past, we have a story and we feel like something has been done wrong or whatever it is happening, and we haven't resolved it. And so we're just holding on to that. And so it's like a baggage, heavy baggage we're holding on, and we're identifying with that. The point is, we need to have a willingness to let go of that, recognizing that I can have something better than that. The past is past. There's never I can change. I can blame people for whatever had happened in the past, and that's fine. But it's not going to change my life. At the end of my life, nobody's going to care what somebody did to me. I have to be myself. The energy that I carry myself, wherever I go, that's a final reality. When somebody is in the past, their energy is low. They don't have a high vibration. Nobody wants to be around them. I mean,
right.
Look at it. It's not fun.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's not fun. Yeah. So listen. So how do you actually let go?
How I realize by forgiveness. We just keep on saying, at the beginning it's not easy, but the way I look at things, I say, okay, whatever has happened, I may not understand it. I may not understand why this is happening. I didn't do anything wrong, whatever it is. Well, the way I look at it, okay, whatever it is, there has been something has happened. I don't know exactly what it is, but I just say, I'm grateful for whatever has happened, because I have learned something. And I know I will be learning something about this situation. For that reason, I would say, okay, I will release this thing. I forgive myself, and I forgive the other person. At the beginning, it might not sound very real. It might not be so, okay, but I'll gradually, it will go away. And the main thing is we have to connect. We need to do some work as far as meditation, connecting with ourselves, because if we know what's up there for us, who we are, then we are not going to hold on to the old past hurts. As soon as we know, if we realize, okay, I am source of joy and love myself. I don't need to hold on to something that hurt me in the past and drag it with me. I can tap to that energy. So that's really is a kind of experimental, and realize I don't no longer need it. It's like the old clothing that say I don't no longer need it. I don't have to wear it anymore. So I think it's a combination of becoming aware and meditating, and for me, it's connecting with the nature and just being there and not judging. Right. The judgment is because judgment is separates us. So I would say this is letting go. It's taken me for a while for me. I mean, it's not. I'm still. Right. It's a process, but you realize it. You see the pattern as you can start letting go of small things. You don't have to let go of the big items, but you can let go of the driver cut in front of you. You don't have to. You don't have to be angry at all the white cars.
Right. Exactly.
So that's a practice. So letting go, you just start with small things, and then you build it up as you get stronger. That's how we do it. There's no magic bullet, but you have to. It's a process you have to start. Letting go of whatever. You forgive yourself. I mean, one of the things you have to do, most people, they don't forgive themselves. They're blaming themselves for a mistake they did 3 years ago, whatever it was. Let it go. Forgive yourself. And that's a practice. It's just a practice you have to do.
Right. And I think that's an important point. And I think out of that part of the conversation, I think for a listener to really get out of this, in order to let go of some of the, let's say, baggage or the past or whatever, that kind of like the secret sauce, if you want to call it, is forgiveness. Forgiveness. Now, maybe it's for the other person, but what happens a lot, let's say you were divorced, right? And you went through this traumatic thing, or something happened where you should have been somewhere and you didn't, or you should have said, should have done, should have, could have, would have, right? One of the things I always talk to my students is like, and I got this from Tony Robbins, is like, stop shooting all over yourself, right?
Yes.
Because it's like that shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? It's not something that can change. But when you forgive that person, right, it's important. But what's more important, I think, is forgiving yourself. Yes. And so my question to you is, let's talk about a little bit about the forgiveness, because I think like somebody would say like, well, I can't forgive it. I can't forgive myself. Right. So it's like it goes back to letting go of that, what you're holding on to. Right. Because here's the thing. If you're not willing to forgive, to me, it says that gives you something, right? That fact that you're not letting go of this. What do you think about that? Like, what are they holding on to that they're not willing to forgive?
Well, if you're not willing to forgive yourself, my opinion is we actually believing we are not worthy of love and appreciation. And so we don't really want to say that. So we just say, I cannot forgive myself. So I want to punish myself. I'm not worthy. I don't deserve it. So it goes back to our belief and point of view that what it is. But when we start connecting with ourselves, meditating and inquiry, then when we realize, okay, the vastness that we have even within ourselves, and then realize, okay, whatever it is, the vastness is bigger than anything else. We can forgive. We are bigger than what we think we are. We are deserving. The love and is everywhere. This universe is connected. So we just have to get out of the low vibration. And it just takes the practice. Yes, we might not forgive ourselves, but that also requires to be around people that raise our vibration, give us a pointer, question us. I mean, I know you'll be doing coaching. I mean, that's really something important to ask the right questions. Sometimes this right question, all of a sudden, boom, the person looks at things differently. Right. So it's a matter of, the first thing is, when the person says, I cannot forgive myself, that's actually good because that's the honest part. The question is, why can't you forgive yourself? Because if you cannot forgive yourself, you cannot forgive anyone else around you because everybody is a reflection.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys catch this? This is important. I like what you just said that. Everybody else is a reflection. Reflection of what or who? Reflection of
them.
Right?
Yeah, yes.
Right. And so what I'm getting out of that part is like, listen, when you see the world in a certain way because you can't forgive them, right? It's not so much that it's a reflection of you, who you are, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
that's very important. Also, the way I look at it, if you like someone, their attributes, actually it's a reflection of you. You like what you see the attributes in you, and if you don't like someone, and you're really agitated about it, also through self-inquiry, you realize that's something in you that you don't like, and you're kind of projecting other people. So it's a good tool to look around, see who agitates you, and then it says, okay, there's something in there that I need to learn about them, or what is it in them that I have.
Right, that agitates me or whatever the case.
Yes. So it's really a mirror. The whole world is a mirror. The relationship is also a mirror. So it's just kind of everything is. We are here to find ourselves, basically.
Exactly right. I love it. So let me ask you a couple of questions about meditation because you brought it up a couple of times. So I assume you have like a morning routine and things like that. Want to talk about that?
Yes, I do actually. I meditate. Meditation for me, it's something I do in the morning. I try to do half an hour in the morning. I do it at lunchtime or I do it at night, 15, 20 minutes, depending how much time I have. And this is it's kind of, I have no expectation when I do meditate. I just sit down and let things flow. And usually, my mind, your mind might start chattering and think about all the stuff that might happen. And after a while, it gets tired. After a while, it just all this stuff, you let it go. And there are moments like a 10-second, 20-second, I connect with something within myself that's so peaceful and so joyful that gives me so much energy that it can carry me for a couple of hours.
Wow. All right. So here's what I'm hearing because listen, when it comes to meditation, I've heard a lot and I have my morning routine as well, but I've heard from people is that you got to stop thinking. You just got to let your mind go blank. Well, good luck with that, right? Because and when it's quiet and guess what? The inner voice starts chatting. But what I heard from you, which is really interesting, is really cool, is that you sit down into your morning routine and your mind starts chatting. And if you just let it be, sooner or later, that chatter is going to stop. It's going to get tired. And then you have that place where it's just you connecting with something within yourself. And that gives you, that's the meditation is not that full 20 minutes. It's that 10, 20, 30-second spot that connects you. That's the whole point.
That gives me the thing. Yeah. So it's whenever that's the part that gives me. I love it to be 20 minutes all like that. But
yeah.
But at the same time, I know what the reality is. And so when we are functioning from that spot, then I can let go of the past. I know what I carry, what's within ourselves, that peace and joy, calmness is there. So we can function from that space. And that space actually is very, very peaceful and calm. And we can do many things with that.
Right. Exactly. Awesome. So if there was one thing that somebody should be doing during the day is what?
To go outside and walk in the nature and just look at the beauty, whatever is around you, the flowers, the trees, observe the birds, and just be there and be there. I think that's really, that's how it works for me. I just go in the nature and don't have any expectation, and just be and just see what comes to you.
All right. And isn't that kind of form of meditation as well when you just go and be in that?
Yes, it is. Actually, just said it.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Yeah. Because even think about it, like when we sometimes drive back somewhere, drive from home or whatever, and you have no idea how you got to that place where you're supposed to be. Well, guess what? I think you were kind of in that place, right?
Yes.
All right. Very cool. Awesome. So listen, I love this conversation. I think we can go on for hours because there's so much gold in here.
Yes.
Because of what is actually, listen guys, when you get the fact that, being in a moment and there is no happiness, it's not something you find, it's just you're being that way, right? And you have those places, those times where you can just be in a moment and that happiness just overflows you. It is amazing to see what happens for you. So that's why I love this kinds of conversation. But I want to go into my final round, Polish Peter's final round. And my first question is, obviously, the question I ask a lot is about the book. What book would you recommend? I know you have your own book, but is there any other books that you want to recommend?
Well, the book that I recommend that has been is a book called Loving What Is.
Loving What Is, okay.
Yeah, it's by Byron Katie. And that's really for people that you were asking how people can let go of the past and so forth and hurt. I think that's it. It is like a self-inquiry kind of technique they do. And it just kind of brings up question. I think that's very useful. That's the thing I did many years ago. And that's really good first step to just really looking at it, and rather than pointing a finger at someone else and so forth, we just kind of question it and just have more appreciation for what's going on. I think that's really one of the better books I recommend. Yes.
All right, awesome. And your book, Tend to Your Garden Within, probably talks a lot about what we just discussed here too as well, right?
Tend to Garden Within, yeah. It talks about some of the techniques I have used and some modalities I've used. Also, I have written a poetry book, Melody of Symphony of My Heart, that just published as well. Both are on Amazon. You can look it up. Also, I have a bi-weekly blog. If you go to my website, ShervinHojat.com, you can subscribe to the weekly blog. That is some reflection on the same ideas, letting go, and how to be just looking at different issues.
All right. Awesome. Very cool. All right. Next question. Yes. I know we talked a lot on the podcast about happiness. We talked about being in the moment. We talked about forgiveness, both for yourself and for other people. We talked about, shifting how you're looking at life, right? And meditation, all that kind of stuff. Out of all of that, one piece of advice that you would give to the immigrant listener, a lot of people who come into the United States and where they're at, all kinds of different places and countries, and they land here and they're here and what now kind of thing, right? What's the one last piece of advice that you would give them?
do not assume anything, because we have our own glasses you wear. Do not prejudge anything, and just be yourself and be open. I think that's a that's a good way to look at things. That means being in the moment and make a judgment based on that moment rather than based on your past experiences.
All right. Awesome. Very cool. All right. Next question. I believe that every single person in the world has some kind of a superpower. Something that they're really good, the gift that they've gotten, and they can pass it on to others. What is your superpower?
Well, my superpower, I think I have a connection with nature. When I go in nature, I get inspired. I feel the bees and the birds talk to me and just show me, and I take the picture. They kind of pose for me, and they want it to be shared. So that's I feel I'm a kind of like a bridge between them and other people, just trying to bring messages from them. I feel is my superpower.
Awesome. Very cool. I was at your Facebook page, and I've looked at some of the stuff that you shared, and it is such beautiful pictures. It's like you get the heart of what nature is, right? Like it's not a picture. It's almost like an experience of what it actually is. You know what I mean? And it's such a great thing to see, because if you really look out there, what we have, it's unbelievable. It blows my mind every single day, kind of thing. All right. My next question is, one thing that you want to share about your old country, Iran. Maybe it's a custom, maybe it's a food, maybe it's something about a particular place, if somebody were to visit, or anything for that matter, people.
Well, one of the custom it is, we are very Iranian people. They're very hospitable, and when you visit them, or when we visit them, they want you to eat a lot. Even they don't hear no. If the no is, sometimes I get very frustrated, because I'm kind of I've been here for so long. When I say no, I mean no. If I want to say yes, I say yes. It doesn't work like that. So it's more of okay, I'm gonna take a small piece, and then later I know they're gonna ask me to eat more because I didn't eat enough. So it just kind of, you have to kind of pace it. But it's a beautiful thing, because it shows love. It's a custom. People interact through food, and they show love, their affection. So it's a way of connecting and touching and loving each other. Yeah, that's a part that I appreciate a lot. The fact that the offer and the care, and they want to make sure the guests are really taken care of.
Right. And I think it goes for many different cultures. I remember when I was growing up in Poland, my aunt had the certain type of, let's say, cookies or desserts or whatever that we couldn't touch, because that was for the guests that would come over. And every single time there was a table full of stuff, right? When guests come. So we actually liked when they came over, because then what? We could go and try some of that stuff, and my aunt couldn't say anything right in front of them, kind of thing, right? But,
yes, I have the same experience.
Yeah, and it's amazing. But it is. Listen, it does show love. It connects to people, and it's a great experience to enjoy. And so one thing I got is, you gotta go, when you go there, you gotta be hungry. You can't go full in any of those places. So you gotta be hungry.
Yes.
All right, awesome. My next question for you is, obviously, you have a lot of, when you go to self-discovery and all the kind of stuff, you wrote the book. I'm curious, what's next for you?
Oh, well, I think, this is an ongoing process. There's no end to it. As far as I can say, they're just peeling the onion. And for me is, I think, possibly there's going to be more books. I don't know. It's a journey that's searching for myself, and whatever I find, whatever I discover of myself, I love to share with other people. Because one thing for me, one of the motivation for me is, I've been so blessed. I had so many people in my life that they have been my teacher. They have helped me so much, and I like to give it back. if they weren't there in my path, I wouldn't be here.
Right.
And I think the best way to thank all those people is for me to give back whatever I can find and discover. And that's whatever shape that takes, that's for me.
That is awesome. And I just love how you answered that question, because that just shows me exactly what you're teaching, what you're talking about. You're actually experiencing it, right? And you're enjoying the journey, you're going through it, and you're looking for peeling another onion, right? And what comes next. You're kind of like in awe what might happen next. And that is, right?
Yes.
Very cool. All right. So one last question. If somebody were to reach out to you, kind of mention your website, but is there any other way that they can reach out to you or get to know you or get your book or whatever the case may be?
Yeah, my book can be purchased on Amazon. If you look me up, Shervin Hojat on Amazon, the book and also the audio. And also you can reach me at shervin.hojat@gmail.com if you want to reach me in the email. And on my website is also you can send me a message. I'll be available also on Facebook if you can reach me. Yeah, I'm more than happy to talk to anyone, have discussion. Yes.
All right. Very cool. Yeah, I'll put those couple of things in the show notes if that's okay with you.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Listen, Shervin, thank you so much for sharing your life, sharing your experiences. I know you've shared some of the things that, it's kind of very personal to you. I mean, having that's what happened with your dad and how you went into self-discovery. There's a lot of vulnerability in that, and I really appreciate it because I think that's the kind of stuff that really helps people. And that's why I started this particular podcast, to have the impact on somebody else's life and interview people who went through certain things and are able to, come out on the other end and be more powerful, be empowered, and really help others. And that's what this is about. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you. For you guys listeners, I appreciate you listening to this particular podcast and sharing with others. I've noticed that people are sharing this podcast because it helps. It's something that really benefits the community, not only the immigrant community, but I've noticed that people who have been born here who have, they refer to themselves as Americans or whatever it may be, are listening to this podcast because this is about human beings. And so thank you for sharing the podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for leaving your reviews and on iTunes and different places, and reach out to me. Head over to mastersunite.com or on the Facebook at facebook.com/Masters Unite Movement, and comment, friend me, like the page. Let me know. Talk to me. I would love to hear what you have to say. Share your story. Or maybe you'll be on this particular podcast in the future. So thank you so much for being on this podcast. Thank you for listening. And until the next episode, this is Polish Peter with Immigrant Masters Unite.